What if I told you a single headline could kill a car? Not just any car, a beast so powerful it was poised to rewrite the rules of performance and motorsport. In 1972, Ford Australia had the Falcon XA GTHO Phase 4 ready to hit the streets and tracks, but it never made it past the starting line. Why? Because of a media scare so intense it forced an entire industry to slam on the brakes. This is the story of how fear, not fact, ended one of Australia's most iconic muscle cars before it even got the chance to shine. The early 1970s were a golden era for Australian motorsport. Bathurst was a proving ground, a gladiatorial arena where manufacturers clashed to showcase their engineering prowess. Bathurst was a cultural phenomenon. Winning at Bathurst was about selling cars. Manufacturers knew that every fan watching the race was also a potential customer, and the slogan, "Win on Sunday, sell on Monday," wasn't just a marketing gimmick, it was a business strategy. Ford, Holden, and Chrysler were all vying for dominance, and Ford Australia wasn't pulling any punches. The Falcon XA GTHO Phase 4 was their secret weapon. But what happens when the race to win on Sunday sparks fears of disaster on Monday? And why did one car's potential greatness turn into a cautionary tale overnight? Keep watching to find out. Ford's strategy wasn't limited to just designing a high-performance car. The company was building an ecosystem of motorsport dominance. They invested heavily in their racing program, from recruiting top drivers to implementing cutting-edge testing procedures. Their engineers conducted trials in secret, often using closed-off roads or private tracks to refine the Phase 4's performance. They also consulted extensively with race teams to ensure the car met the grueling demands of endurance racing at Bathurst. Every component, from the suspension to the brake cooling ducts, was carefully engineered to withstand the heat and stress of a 500-mile race. This wasn't just about speed, it was about durability and precision, making sure the car could outlast and outperform rivals under extreme conditions. This car was built to conquer Bathurst. And boy, did it have the tools for the job. Under the hood sat a 351 Cleveland V8 engine, a hulking powerhouse that promised jaw-dropping speed and acceleration. Ford engineers weren't just aiming for straight-line dominance. They equipped the Phase 4 with advanced handling upgrades, making it a razor-sharp performer in the corners too. Early tests of the prototypes suggested that the Phase 4 was more than a match for anything on the grid. Testing the Phase 4 involved rigorous evaluations under extreme conditions. Prototypes were driven at high speeds for hours on closed tracks, testing not only the engine's endurance, but also the reliability of components like the gearbox, cooling systems, and aerodynamics. Engineers even tested the car on Australia's notorious rural roads, filled with bumps, gravel, and tight turns, to ensure it could handle the unpredictable terrain of a Bathurst-style race. These trials revealed that the car's aerodynamics significantly reduced drag, while the reinforced suspension system provided unmatched cornering stability. Ford's testing team included seasoned drivers who pushed the prototypes to their absolute limits, often reporting back on how the car could be fine-tuned to achieve even greater performance. In fact, it was also street legal, a tantalizing promise to gearheads across the country. But how did Ford Australia push the boundaries of engineering to create a car that wasn't just fast, but practically unstoppable on and off the track? And what made rivals so nervous they'd stop at nothing to see it fail? Just as Ford was revving up for greatness, the brakes were slammed. In mid-1972, a storm began brewing. Not on the racetrack, but in the media. Sensational headlines started appearing in Australian newspapers, warning the public about so-called supercars. These articles claimed that manufacturers like Ford, Holden, and Chrysler were putting deadly race cars on public roads. The media's campaign against the so-called supercars wasn't limited to a few articles. Front-page headlines screamed about the dangers of allowing these cars on public roads, and editorial pieces urged politicians to take immediate action. Television segments showcased exaggerated simulations of high-speed crashes, creating widespread panic. Even radio talk shows dedicated hours to debating the morality of producing such powerful vehicles. Public sentiment quickly turned against manufacturers like Ford, with some parents demanding bans on supercars, fearing their influence on young drivers. In less than a month, the supercar scare dominated national discussions, forcing car companies to reassess their public relations strategies. The Falcon XA GTHO Phase 4 was one of the cars in their crosshairs. The reports were dramatic, describing these vehicles as high-speed death traps and irresponsible machines capable of endangering innocent lives. The term supercar became a dirty word, synonymous with reckless driving and public danger. Of course, none of this was true. Cars like the Phase 4 were certainly fast, but they were designed for responsible drivers and enthusiasts, not wannabe stuntmen. The media didn't care about nuance, though. Fear sells papers, and the supercar scare was just getting started. What if I told you the Falcon XA GTHO Phase 4 didn't just fall victim to fear, but to sabotage? Behind the headlines, there's a whisper of something far more sinister. Secret deals, backstabbing rivals, and power plays that might have killed the Phase 4 before it even got its first lap. Was the supercar scare really about safety? Or was it a masterstroke by someone who stood to gain everything from burying Ford's dream? Stay tuned, because what we uncovered will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this so-called scare. As the panic spread, the Australian government found itself in a tough spot. The political response to the supercar scare was swift and intense. Members of Parliament debated the ethics of selling high-powered vehicles to the general public. Some politicians called for immediate bans on supercars, citing public safety as a priority. Behind closed doors, regulators worked on drafting proposals that would limit engine capacities, restrict power-to-weight ratios, and impose hefty taxes on performance vehicles. The public backlash also saw the Australian Transport Safety Bureau conduct independent studies on the dangers of high-speed cars, though their findings were often misrepresented in media reports. The cumulative pressure from these efforts placed manufacturers like Ford in an untenable position, as continuing production risked not only public goodwill but also potential legal battles. Politicians started calling for stricter regulations on high-performance cars, and public sentiment turned against vehicles like the Phase 4. Ford suddenly found itself in the middle of a PR nightmare. The Phase 4, once a symbol of innovation and performance, was now being painted as a ticking time bomb on wheels. Here comes the twist. Just as Ford was about to launch the Phase 4, the media and government pressure became unbearable. With the threat of stricter laws and a potential ban on supercars, Ford's executives made the heartbreaking decision to cancel the entire program. The Phase 4 was dead before it could even officially roll off the production line. 3 prototypes and 1 production model were already built, but that was it. They never saw the light of day, and the dream of Ford dominating Bathurst with the Phase 4 was over. The fallout was immense. The cancellation of the Phase 4 wasn't just the end of one car, it marked the end of Ford's iconic GTHO program. For enthusiasts, it was a gut punch, a cruel reminder of how easily passion and progress can be derailed by fear and misinformation. And Ford wasn't the only one affected. The supercar scare sent shockwaves through the entire Australian car industry. Manufacturers became hesitant to push boundaries, fearing that any ambitious project could be torpedoed by public outcry. Instead of chasing raw performance, they started playing it safe, focusing on practical and restrained designs. Imagine the frustration of Ford's engineers and designers who had poured their hearts into creating the Phase 4. This was a masterpiece, a culmination of everything they'd learned about speed, power, and precision. And yet, all it took was a few sensational headlines to undo years of hard work. But as they say, legends never die. While the Phase 4 may have been buried by the supercar scare, its legacy only grew stronger with time. The few surviving models became symbols of what could have been, and their rarity turned them into coveted treasures for collectors. Owning a Phase 4 wasn't just about having a fast car, it was about owning a piece of history. A tangible reminder of an era when Australian cars dared to dream big. In fact, one of these cars recently sold for over $2 million. That's enough to buy a fleet of modern supercars, but none of them would have the same mystique as the Phase 4. This car wasn't just about performance. It was about ambition, rebellion, and a story that refuses to fade. If you're enjoying this deep dive into one of the greatest what-ifs in automotive history, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We've got more incredible stories just like this one, from the cars that changed the world to the ones that never got the chance. Now, let's circle back to the bigger picture. Why does a car that never raced, never sold in mass numbers, and never officially launched still hold such a powerful grip on the imagination of enthusiasts today? The Phase 4 wasn't just a victim of media hysteria, it was also a casualty of changing times. The 1970s were a period of growing concern about safety, fuel efficiency, and environmental impact. Muscle cars with their roaring engines and unapologetic thirst for fuel were becoming targets for criticism worldwide. The supercar scare in Australia was just one example of a broader shift away from raw, unbridled performance. But was it fair? The Phase 4 wasn't a danger to society. It was a testament to what humans could achieve when they pushed the limits of engineering. The media frenzy robbed the world of a car that could have redefined Australian motorsport and inspired a new generation of performance vehicles. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about the power of perception. The story of the Falcon XA GTHO Phase 4 serves as a reminder of how quickly public opinion can turn, often without all the facts. In an age where misinformation spreads faster than ever, it's worth reflecting on the lessons of the supercar scare. What other innovations might we be missing out on because of fear and misunderstanding? As we wrap up, let's take a moment to appreciate the legacy of the Phase 4. It's more than just a car. It's a symbol of what could have been, a dream cut short but never forgotten. And who knows, maybe one day we'll see a new generation of Australian muscle cars rise from the ashes, inspired by the spirit of the Phase 4. If you loved this story, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your fellow car enthusiasts. Hit that subscribe button to join us on more journeys through automotive history, and let us know in the comments. Was the supercar scare justified, or was it a tragic overreaction? And don't forget to check out other videos on our channel. You surely won't regret it. Until next time, keep the engine running and the stories alive.